What is going on, guys? Jack here and welcome back to another Football Manager 2019 video. And today I have holidayed 10 years into the future and we're going to take a look through some of the best Wonderkids in FM19 to see how they've developed and well, how they're getting on in the future. Always an interesting one, this one. Some very high profile Wonderkids to go through. As you can see on screen here, I've got a shortlist made with 264 players on. This is a shortlist that is still a work in progress. Obviously, you guys know each and every year I release a shortlist file on the Steam Workshop with the best Wonderkids in one big shortlist. Still working on that at the moment. Should be coming with you in the next week or two, so do keep an eye out for that. And of course, there will be videos to accompany that list. And if you want a Wonderkids FM19 fix a little bit sooner, you can check out my top 10 Wonderkids video that already went up on the channel last week. I will have a link to that down in the description. But anyway, here we are. The year is 2028 and we're going to look through some of these players. I've sorted them by value. We'll go through as many of these as possible. Naturally, we're not going to go through too many hundred, but we want to cover some of the biggest, most high-profile names. And well, the first of those, the most valuable player in this simulation of all the Wonderkids at the start of the game, Kylian Mbappe, the Frenchman, still at PSG, valued at £91 million, has developed into what is just an incredible attacking midfielder. Very similar to Neymar, to be honest, in terms of how it is attribute to luck. If we look at his career stats here, you can see just tearing apart Liga. Not entirely surprising to see that from him. A player who naturally, there's only a select few teams you might be able to sign him as in FM19. And, well, PSG, they've held on to him here. I imagine they'll hold on to him quite a lot. Not entirely surprising to see him developing as much as he is. I already mentioned Neymar, a player who, I don't want to say he's tipped to be the next Neymar, but I feel like as a player moving from the Brazilian Premier League at Flamengo to Real Madrid, there's always that tag that kind of gets added to players that they're going to be the next superstar. That, of course, being Vinicius Jr., who we're talking about. The youngster, a left midfielder and striker who starts the game at Real Madrid. You can see here he was signed by Manchester United for £94 million, where he's gone on to make a real name for himself. And, well, what a player he is. His physicals are superb. Just all round, just a well-rounded player. Not quite as fast as Mbappe necessarily, but just the complete package really. Definitely could play as a striker in this save, playing out on the left-hand side. One of the best players, I think, in terms of just pure raw talent. A few more players, we'll go through these a little more quickly, I feel like. But Dembele here, of course, the Frenchman, starts the game, if I'm not mistaken, of course, at Barcelona. He was signed for a rather large fee, you may remember in real life. You can see here he was actually sold to PSG. He then went to Man City and now he's gone back to Barcelona. Some crazy fees thrown around for these players here. Phil Foden, Manchester City youngster, has stuck around and stayed at the club. Has made a few appearances for England. Not as many as you might expect, however. Valued at £76 million, though, turned into a very, very good attacking midfielder here. Shou Felix, the Portuguese young centre-mid, starts at Benfica. He has ended up here at PSG. Looks like an incredible player, to be honest. A bit like a mini Vinicius Jr. Not quite on the same level, but of course he can play centre-mid and he looks very, very good indeed. Other players here, a few Englishmen, which does make me feel a little happy. Of course, Jaden Sancho, a player really has made a name for himself in the real world of football right now. This season at Dortmund, he has been, well, at the top of his game. And you can see in FM terms here, he is a very, very good winger indeed. In this save, Liverpool signed him for £66 million. He has gone on to perform consistently at a very high level, particularly in recent seasons. Perhaps a little bit of a late bloomer. But yeah, he's been very good. And another Liverpool player, actually, Trent Alexander-Arnold, probably the best right-back in the game, in my opinion. Just such a well-rounded and versatile player. You can see, besides his long throws, just everything, just elite, pretty much. So well-rounded. Very few attributes below 13 here. In fact, most of them are 14 or 15 looking at it. Just crazily well-rounded. Of course, can also play at centre-mid. Just one of the best right-backs in the game, but you could play him elsewhere as well. Anyway, other players we've got here, Sergio Gomez playing for Man City, a player who starts at Dortmund. He has moved for £85 million here. Other players, Emile Smith-Rowe. This was an interesting one. I have never heard of this guy. Starts at Arsenal in game. He's gone on to become a real star. And well, when you compare the number of caps he has to Phil Foden's, this guy been tipped ahead of him by the England kind of coach in the setup. Anyway, a few strikers now to look through. Fiat Arp starts at Hamburg, if I'm not mistaken. He has ended up at PSG here. A very, very good forward indeed. Playing in the second tier of Germany at the start of your save game. You can pick him up for less than £20 million. Other players here, Myron Bordeaux, we'll go with that. Starts at AZ, you can see here he's had a few moves around, ended up at Dortmund in this specific save. Very good, not necessarily world class, but very, very good. Player who definitely is world class and has been for the last couple of years in FM. Pietro Pellegrini, of course, signed for AS Monaco in real life not that long ago for £22.5 million. You can see here, he has kind of been Monaco's answer to Mbappe in a lot of ways, but an incredibly gifted player. Arthur, of course, the Barcelona youngster, has ended up at Chelsea in this save. Just an incredible playmaker. 18 passing, 18 vision. Not necessarily the craziest physicals, but you can see here, looking at his media description, a world-class midfielder. Anyway, there's some of the most valuable players. There's a load of players here to go through. I think what might be a good idea is to try and insert the media description. That might help us to look at some of the players considered world-class, because the values of players, whilst they are good, very often, it's determined by a player's players' wages, the club that they're playing at. So we'll have a look through some of these lists. You can see a lots of players on this Wonderkids list now considered experienced, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the world-class players, which, knowing my luck, I'm now not going to find on this list. There should be some somewhere. I guess elite will do. Okay, here we have the world-class players. So in terms of world-class players, Lucas Picatta ended up at Chelsea in this save. A player who I've signed, of course, in my Bayer Leverkusen Let's Play. A player who I definitely recommend you check out. You can pick him up for £15 million in your first season. And a player who, if you've not seen him play, you might want to check out the Bayern Let's Play. Other players in this list that we've got in terms of world-class players. Benton Kerr, I've never heard of this guy. I feel like I should have heard of him. Maybe I have heard of him. He starts at Juve in game. Of course, he played 20 games. I have. I'm talking rubbish. But nevertheless, not perhaps one of these players who you hear the name of thrown around consistently like the likes of Mbappe. But in this specific save, he's done pretty well. That world-class description, a tag that has been given onto him. Nicolo Barella, a player who, I'm going to be honest, I'm not familiar with. Italian, starts at Cagliari. And you can see here, he's moved to Monaco on a free from Man City, where he really wasn't getting given that much football and time to. He is listed as a world-class player. Other players we've got here, Jaden Fernandez, a player who I've seen Bayern sign on my Leverkusen save. He definitely is one of the best centre-mids this year in game. How much did Real Madrid pick him up for? £102 million. You can actually see in this save, Bayern picked him up like they did in my Leverkusen save. £78 million they paid for him. Other players we've got here, a few who I'm not that familiar with. We'll have a look at them. Zaniolo, an Italian centre-mid, starts the game at Roma. And you can see he's put in a few appearances here and there. He's ended up at Juventus. He looks very, very good. Very nice physicals for a midfielder. That's kind of unusual. Has some nice PPMs as well. We also have this guy. We'll call you Mikhail because I'm going to butcher your last name otherwise. Starts the game at Borussia Mönchengladbach. You can see here, signed for £46 million by Bayer. He looks pretty good. Other players here, Kesi has been signed for Liverpool, one of the best defensive midfielders in the game this year. Starts, of course, at Milan. You can see Liverpool here paid £72 million for him. Liverpool seem to have hoarded a load of the good young players. I don't know how to feel about that. I feel like as a Liverpool fan, I should be very, very happy. Anyway, let's talk about some more players here. Alessio Riccardi, playing for Inter Milan, signed from Roma for £67 million. He looks good. This guy, Caceres, a defensive midfielder playing for Barcelona, considered an elite midfielder, starts the game at Vélez, I guess. He may start at Villarreal. Either way, he's ended up at Barcelona, a player who I'm really not familiar with, but in this specific save, he's turned out pretty good for them. Obviously, if you're playing for Barca, things are going right for you. There's some of the world-class midfielders. Are there that many world-class attackers? I'm kind of surprised that when I sort by media description, it doesn't sort them in a better way. It's worth noting, Dembele is considered the only legendary winger. A player who I feel like I should talk about is Wagnerman here. He's on loan from Manchester United. He starts the game at Hamburg, similarly to Arp. You can see here, signed for £41 million by Schalke, has since gone on to United for £46 million. This guy, I've seen him develop better in saves, but he's still a very, very good player. He's one of those rare breeds of fullbacks who play left and right back, a particularly useful kind of utility man in your save games. A player who I do recommend you check out. Interesting that Nacho here has ended up at Spal in the Italian Serie B. Obviously, sometimes Wonderkids make it, sometimes they don't. Particularly interested in the case of Kelechi here, because of course he's a player who in real life moved to Leicester for £25 million and had some real ability about him. You can see here he's just had an absolute disaster of a career, would be the best way to describe it. Played for Derby in the Championship where he was moved there for £1.6 million. And I've not seen a player perform that badly, a well-established player, in quite some time, but FM being pretty cruel on him. Anyway, I think that actually the best thing to do is go be sorting by value again, to take a look at a few more of these players that we might not have seen. Chiesa here, you can see Italian forward on loan from PSG. He has developed consistently on a few saves that I've seen. I've seen him get signed by Arsenal in the first season and perform really, really well for them. Lewis Cook playing for Manchester City, the Bournemouth young centre mid. You can see here signed for £47 million. He's a player who I definitely rate. He's one of the better playmakers in the game, particularly if you're playing in England with Brexit and you need English players. Keep an eye out for him. De Ligt, probably the highest profile centre-back in world football in terms of Wonderkids. I feel like he's a name who most people have heard of now. Had a real kind of breakthrough season last year with Ajax in Europe. Here you can see he's got 100 caps already for the Netherlands. Has made a number of very high-profile moves here. Total fee paid for him across his career, £347 million. A bit of a mercenary who's moved around a bit. Lee Kangin here, you can see signed for Bayern. Unusual to see this guy develop from Valencia, if I'm not mistaken. Indeed it is. I very rarely see this guy reach his potential, but here he's moved to Bayern and he looks like a very, very good midfielder. Great vision, okay passing, his flair also very standout, his physical superb. Other players here, let's have a look. We've got Koerner, a player who I'm not familiar with. I always enjoy it when a new Football Manager comes out, kind of seeing some players who I'm not familiar with do well. This guy playing in Germany has played for Leipzig, Bayern and now plays for Dortmund. Not the craziest performances, but regardless, valued at £63 million, so he must be doing something right. Haaland here is a very good player. He has a kind of transfer agreed at the start of FM19, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's with Red Bull Salzburg in Austria. Yeah, this £3.6 million deal is guaranteed to happen. However, definitely a player worth trying to pick up. One of the best kind of complete forwards in the game. You can see here, great in terms of his speed, great in the air, good attacking ability. Technical's not the craziest, but if you're looking for that out-and-out advanced forward, he could be the man for you here. Playing for Real Madrid as a striker, I mean, that gives you an idea of how good perhaps he is. Hasn't got the craziest goal-scoring returns, to be honest. But no, really rate this guy in FM, a player who, I'm going to be honest, I would love to sign longer term in my buyer save because I do think he's that good. Anyway, let's flick through a few more players here. Claudio Gomes, a player, again, I'm not familiar with him. I'm sure for some of you players I'm saying here I'm not familiar with, you're going to be screaming and shouting about and telling me that I don't know anything. But looking at it here, he starts at City, I believe. Obviously, he'll only be 17 at the start of the game. Very, very impressive mentals on him. Very professional personality as well. Gedson Hernandez, we've talked about, as we have with Kesi. Maya here, playing for Bayern Munich. You can see 29 years old. Very, very good German player. Again, pretty solid mentals all in all. Very well-rounded, good personality. One of the better centre mids. You can see he starts the game at Hertha Berlin, moved for £57 million. Definitely a player worth screaming and shouting about. Marcus Rashford, playing for Manchester City. United fans, how do we feel about that? That is an interesting transfer and a half. 30 years old, 93 caps for England, a very talented player. A player who I do feel like is a little, I don't want to say he's underrated in FM, but I feel like his actual technical ability and his mentals are kind of eclipsed by the fact that people just pigeonhole him as quite a fast player. I think he has a bit more to his game than that, Rashford. Regardless, he has developed here. We also have Diawara here playing for Napoli. The Guinean centre mid starts at Napoli. You can see he's just stuck around here for this whole time. Consistently been part of their team over the last 10 years and been very, very good. Interested to see how Rodrigo's done here. This guy is a player who starts with a deal already agreed to go to Real Madrid. Of course, a very high-profile signing. He's joining from Santos. Probably fits into that Vinicius Junior kind of bracket of players moving to Spain who you expect to see a lot of. Here you can see he's had a few moves at relatively large fees, including loan spells back at Real Madrid and Atletico from Manchester City, who signed him. Interesting dealings. In the end, he's now settled on a move in Monaco, and to be honest, he is a very, very good player. Can play left wing, can play as a striker. A bit like a baby Vinicius Junior, I guess, in a lot of ways. Other players we've got here, Picatta we've talked about. Reece Oxford, of course, of West Ham is ended up here at PSG out with a long-term injury, looking at it. A player who was very good for me last year in my Lincoln City save I did over on Twitch. This year, no different. He is a very, very good centre-back. You can see here Man City picked him up for £33 million. He's since moved on to PSG. Speaking of centre-backs, we also have Mpami Kano here, the Frenchman, player who I believe starts at Leipzig. You can see here, signed for Arsenal for £53 million. That is a big fee thrown out, but a very, very good centre-back. Probably a little bit better than Reece Oxford, to be fair to him. Juan Hernandez, I believe, starts at Watford, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you can see here a number of loans out, I believe, from Watford, where he, as you can see here, has gone on to play a little bit. Was signed by Man City for £90 million. That is a crazy sum of money considering the season before he only got 9 goals. From there, though, ended up having a load of loan spells out, then went to Dortmund, has ended up at Liverpool now. A player who is a very, very good player in FM terms this year. I'm kind of surprised for the crazy money he's gone for, but naturally that's kind of how transfer fees get bloated. One of the players who I think is one of the best players this year, Martinez. I've seen this guy become one of the best strikers in the game. Obviously, Dybala isn't exactly an old player at this point, but he kind of reminds me of Dybala, you know, an Argentine forward playing in Serie A. You can see here he's signed obviously for Inter in real life for £22.5 million. You can see his goal scoring record for them has been pretty impressive all in all. 157 goals in 358 games. And he gets player of the match in 1 in every 7 league games. That is not a bad return at all. 13 assists this season as well. A player capable of playing up top or anywhere in midfield. Definitely a player to keep your eye on. Antonio Marin, a player who of course featured in my best Wonderkids video. You can see here, he was in I think number 2 in that list. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but he was in that list. You can see here, playing for Milan. Went to PSG for £4.6 million. To be honest, they didn't treat him that well. A number of loan spells out where, to be honest, he put pretty good numbers in the Bundesliga. From there, though, he's ended up at Milan, but a very, very good player nevertheless, valued at £58 million. Perhaps an indication of just how good he is. A few other players here. We have Claudio, Argentine forward. Going to be honest, not familiar with this guy at all. Must play for Inter in real life. He's moved here for Real Madrid for £22 million. Another player playing for Real Madrid, we have Brignola here, another Italian player, actually in on loan. Starts the game at Sassuolo. A number of big kind of profile moves here. Not a standout player, to be honest, but for some reason, he's just turned it on at Real Madrid. 12 goals. I'm kind of surprised Madrid won him, but he's been playing for them and doing pretty well. Theo Hernandez, probably the best left-back in the game in terms of young players. A bit like, I guess, Alexander-Arnold in a lot of ways, but at left-back, starts the game at... No, of course, he signed for Real Madrid in real life. I was going to say he starts the game at Atleti, but he made a transfer in real life a couple of years ago now. You can see here, he's just been there nailed on left-back for a number of years. Really is a world-class player. Other players we've got here, Alexander Isaac, playing for Barca, starts the game at Dortmund. You can see he's had a move around. Looking at it here, I'm kind of surprised at how many of these Wonderkids have just moved to elite kind of teams in Europe and still performed. Very often, obviously, these players, the players who have moved around here, some of them haven't played that much football, but some of them have kind of still developed, which is kind of impressive given the circumstances. Other players here, Tonali, a player who, of course, we've signed in our buyer save. He's turned out pretty good here. Playing for Inter, was signed for £4.8 million. I've seen him become better than he is here, but nevertheless, he looks pretty solid all in all. Zagadou, another French centre-back. A good player. I've seen him get transfer listed on a few saves for small sums of money. A player who I'm sure lots of English fans want to see. Ryan Sessegnon, playing for Watford here. I don't know how well Fulham did in the Prem. They survived for 2 years. He then went to Huddersfield for £35 million. And then from there went to Watford for 38, where he has now stayed and regularly played pretty much every single season. Not missed many games as well. You can see over the course of the last... Well, if you include... I guess you can include his season with Fulham. Over the course of the last 10 years... he has missed, I'm trying to do the math here, not many games. Is it 18 games he's missed in total across 10 years in the league? That's crazy numbers. Really has not missed out on a lot whatsoever there. Anyway, I'm going to flick through a few more players. I have to apologise because I'm sure there's players you wanted me to show that I'm not going to, but trying to show as many as possible. Kieran Tyranny here, playing for Arsenal, valued at £54 million. He looks very, very good. Again, a very good left-back. Probably up there, actually, with Theo Hernandez as one of the better left-backs in the game this year. Probably slightly more reasonable to sign him as well. Paulino we're going to check out because I'm a biased buyer. Let's Play player. You can see here he's ended up at Schalke. Not developed into kind of some crazy player, but a good player nevertheless. I mean, he's valued at £52 million. He's not in that world-class bracket necessarily. Reece Nelson, a player who jumps out at me. He is playing for Watford. Seen him develop a little bit better, obviously. An Arsenal youngster with what seems like a bright future ahead of him. Joe Gomez, still at Liverpool, one of the best centre-backs in the game. I always thought he was a little overrated in FM, but given how he's performed in real life as of late, it's difficult to argue against him being given some of the ratings he's been given. A player I am interested by is Thiago Almada here, a player who I feel like is criminally underrated, shall we say, in terms of people don't really know that much about him. He starts the game at Vélez, if I'm not mistaken. You can see here he moved to Tottenham for £8 million and then moved on to Chelsea. Very, very good in this save. 20 composure, 17 vision, 16 passing. He is honestly just a top tier advanced playmaker. Doesn't have the crazy physicals and speed of some players, but in terms of kind of old school kind of enganches, you know, those kind of not so mobile playmakers, he's like Riquelme Jr. I like him a lot, except he's probably a little bit quicker than Riquelme, to be fair to him. It'd be a bit harsh to call him Riquelme. Anyway, other players here. Richarlison has actually ended up in Russia, has not performed very well at all in this specific example. Havertz has moved to Bayern. I'm a little bit upset to see him leaving Bayern to go to Bayern. He was signed for £32 million. That's a little bit of a treacherous move, if you ask me. Justin Kluivert playing for Real Madrid. What a player he has turned into. Very, very impressive. Should we have a look at Real Madrid's team? I just wonder if there's any other players here who I recognise. Why will this not go away now? Please go away. I've clicked on news. Right. I'm just wondering if there's any other players in this list that I recognise. Obviously, all the ones in red, players who are on our shortlist. Luka Jovic has ended up at Real Madrid. He is a very, very good player indeed. Other players here? I think we've gone through a lot of these actually looking at it. Let's have a quick look at Barcelona as well. We might as well do it while we're here. You're a regen. Why am I clicking on you? Players we've got here, Florentino Luis, a player who I'm not familiar with, a Portuguese player, 28 years old, starts the game at Benfica. He looks very, very good as a defensive midfielder, I'm not going to lie. Jota here, also looking good, of course, starts the game at Benfica too. Benfica this year, by the way, if you've not checked out their team, absolutely stacked with talent to start the save. It's a little bit crazy just how good their team actually is. Anyway, let's have a look through maybe just a few more players. I don't want to drag out this video too long, but I do enjoy going through all these players. I'm sure there's some here that I've missed that you're going to wish that I'd clicked on, so I can only apologise. Gabriel Jesus, still at Man City. He is a top tier striker, it's fair to say. Mason Greenwood, this player's a hit and miss player. He starts the game aged 16 at Manchester United. I've seen him become absolutely incredible, and I've now seen him move to Wolverhampton Wanderers on a free transfer where I say that like it's really bad. You can see here he's not played for Manchester United at all. They've just not given him any chances. He got 13 goals for Wolves in the Premier League in his first season ever of regular football in the Prem, other than one season he had actually at Newcastle and another season at Palace. I can't believe how badly United have treated him here, actually, because this guy can turn very good. Definitely a player worth being aware of. As I said, I've seen him develop a little bit better than he has there, but nevertheless, he's good. This guy, I've definitely said that wrong. He starts the game at Lyon, on loan at Leicester here. You can see Chelsea signed him for £120 million. That is crazy money, but this Frenchman, definitely a player to be aware of this year. One of the best centre mids at the start of the game and has potential just to cement himself kind of in the centre mid Hall of Fame. I wonder if that's actually a thing, the centre mid Hall of Fame. We have this guy here, Kerr. You might be wondering, why have I clicked on him? I've clicked on him because I'm curious, because he's ended up in China. Starts the game at Schalke. You can see he went to PSG, then went to Gladbach, had a few seasons there. And one of the few players, actually, who I've seen fairly regularly over the course of this year as a trend. A lot of Bundesliga players actually going to China, and well, he's joined their ranks. There's one player I am kind of keen to have a look at, and it's Markavitch, who of course is the centre-back who we did rank very, very highly. I don't want to say where we ranked him, but in my opinion, he's like the best centre-back this year in FM in terms of Wonderkids who are actually affordable. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to just spot his name in this list as I scroll through. Maybe I will search for him and see if he comes up. I'm hoping he will. Will he show up? Won't he show up? Am I really going to have to go to Partizan and look through their transfer history to find him? Maybe he didn't develop. I'd be surprised if he didn't, because I genuinely think he's like the best centre-back in the game this year in terms of affordable Wonderkids. I'd imagine he'd leave quite early on. Markavitch? Did he never leave? Did he ever exist in the save? Maybe he didn't get loaded. No, I'm really confused. I want to find him. I'm going to go find him. I'll be back in a second once I find it. Hashtag where is Markavitch? So I've had a look for Markavitch, guys. I can't find him. It looks like he never existed in this save, which makes absolutely no sense. Answers on a postcard if you know where he is. If you do want to know the player I'm talking about here, go check out the top 10 Wonderkids. As I said, I think he's the best centre-back this year. I did show him in the future of a different save game there. He should be in your saves as well. I have no idea what's happened here. Of course, I am recording this on the beta. Come up with your own conspiracy theory as to what might have happened with him, I guess, down in the comments. A few other players we'll look through real quickly here before I do wrap up this video. Ronaldo Sanchez, a player who obviously hyped up for a number of years, had a loan spell recently at Swansea where he really didn't impress all that much. You can see here he's had a pretty lacklustre career, really isn't as good as perhaps he once was in FM terms at least. Other players here, John Sutar, 31 years old, starts the game at Hearts. I guess. I'm going to be honest, I'm not familiar with this guy, but he looks like a pretty blooming good centre-back. He's valued at 29 million. He's had a very good career in the Premier League. Got relegated with Stoke, though, so maybe let's move on. He looks okay. For a Scottish player, he looks pretty good. A Serbian player who has actually performed, not Markavitch, unfortunately, is Zivkovic. Of course, a player who in previous FMs has been absolutely kind of top tier when it comes to, I guess, attacking midfielders. This year, not quite on that same level, but nevertheless, he's still a very good player. Other players here, Ademola Lookman, still playing for Everton. Kind of interesting that. You can see actually he's become a mainstay of their first team. A player who I know had a very good season last year in the Bundesliga. It doesn't look like he's going to play that much football this year with Everton, which is a bit of a shame. But who knows, maybe he can turn around his career yet. Carlos Soler here, playing for Valencia, has just stuck at Valencia through thick and thin. Fair play to him. A good centre mid. I've seen him develop better than that. Ben Woodburn, a Welshman in Italy. How has he ended up in Torino? He's gone on a bit of a tour of Europe looking at it. Left Liverpool for Schalke on a free transfer, has since gone to Torino. Very underwhelming. It actually looks like he is no better than at the start of a game just at a glance there, which is a little bit of a shock. Of course, as we go further down here, we start to find the players who are in the Wonderkid graveyard, shall we say. And Martin Odegard, perhaps another player to add to that list. I feel like that's a little harsh on me, actually. Odegard, he's still young. He's been so hyped up, though, for a number of years. And, well, you can see here, moved from Real Madrid to Hoffenheim on a free transfer, where he's been a regular part of their first team. Hasn't really got the best ratings, considering the money that he's on, £115,000 a week. But obviously a very good creative player. I'm really interested to see how Odegard does over the next few years. I feel like he's been a victim of a bit of overhyping, I guess. Another player who I'm curious by is the former Leeds man, Ronaldo Vieira. With a name like that, there is pressure on you to become like the best footballer in the world. Here, playing for West Ham, he doesn't look great, I'm going to be completely honest. Marilla here, a player who I big up a lot in FM this year, has £1 million or around £1 million release clause at the start of your save game. Here he's made a rather odd move to go to Club Bruges, but nevertheless, still a very, very solid player indeed. Only 26 years old here, so still potentially room to improve. Of course, starts the game at 16 years old. And, well, as we scroll down through this list, we just have a few more players here and there. Moritan, again, I'll click on him because he's a name I recognise. Hasn't developed in this save game as well as as I've seen him develop in others. For those of you not aware, obviously, save on save, a lot of Wonderkids' potentials vary. They'll have kind of ranges where their potential can be in, so that in each and every save, kind of the best players in the world are always different. As a result, some of the kind of player ratings you see here might be different to the ones that you saw in your own save games or indeed in any of my other Wonderkid videos. Anyway, I feel like we've gone through this enough. I hope I covered a lot of the players that you guys were most interested to see. Are there any Wonderkids that I didn't show that are players who you've kind of stumbled across in your save game or that maybe you've signed and you're particularly excited about? I want to hear about them down in the comments. I do hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. If you have, do smash that like button. It does greatly help me out. Really do appreciate your love and support on all the FM19 content. Of course, if you are here and new, subscribe to the channel. Keep an eye out for the Wonderkid shortlist video coming up in the next week or so. And yeah, that is going to be all from me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. It is me, Jack, and I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.